In previous videos, we talked about what, in my opinion, was an excellent positioning strategy for Seiko to be where they are today. And then we talked about what they are doing well now and how they have evolved. Now, with some of my knowledge and my personal opinion, I believe there are some bumps in the road that Seiko needs to eliminate in order to continue growing. I believe that although Seiko has had an excellent positioning campaign over the past 40 years, in order to take the new path that they seem to be taking, they need to change people's perception of Seiko again. Now, it is simple. Ask someone who knows about watches and they will tell you that Seiko makes good watches in terms of quality and price. Now, ask someone who may not have knowledge of the watch world and they will likely tell you that they are cheap Japanese watches. And if you don't believe me, please try it out. Ask someone who has nothing to do with watches if they know the brand and what they think of it. But let's focus on what I believe is the path they want or should take. Initially, they were the quality brand that offered a lot for your money, and in my opinion, their best models today are in the mid-range. So I think Seiko needs to decide if they want to remain a brand that offers quality for money in the low range or raise prices and offer some ridiculous watches like certain models they have now. However, I believe you can't be both. And I think this is a problem they have faced before with the names Seiko and Grand Seiko, as they had to run a campaign to separate the relationship between the two brands, which has, in my opinion, been a very successful campaign. But let's not digress. One of the biggest problems I see in Seiko's catalog, which obviously comes along with this evolution of the Japanese brand, is that you find watches with a very wide price range. Now, don't take my word for it. Go to any online store and search for the cheapest and the most expensive Seiko watch. Now, the cheapest one I found was around $100, and the most expensive around $7,000. Now, the most expensive Seiko watch is 70 times more expensive than their most affordable watch. I believe that to a certain extent, this is basically unacceptable. Now, although both watches are built with quality and offer a lot for their price, I believe they offer many things. The problem, in my opinion, is that a $7,000 watch does not offer the same as a $100 watch. And I believe Seiko has to decide which path they want or they should take as a brand. And many people can say what they want, but imagine you buy a $7,000 Seiko, which has a Grand Seiko spring drive movement. And imagine you for some reason meet someone who may not know about watches. Just imagine they say,
"Oh, you have a Seiko. Those are cheap Japanese watches, right?"
and believe me, even though I understand that you shouldn't care what others think, it stings. So I think Seiko is having a brand identity problem. What are you? What are you offering for your customers? Are you a luxury brand or an affordable brand? You can be whatever you want, but you have to choose one. Decide and stick to that path. Because in my opinion, these extremely cheap Seiko models devalue the expensive Seiko watches. Now I want to clarify that there are still Seiko watches, in my opinion, that are cheap for what they offer. For example, as we said in the past videos, the new Seiko 5 GMT, which is a watch you can find on Amazon for around $350. And remember, that's on Amazon, as it might be a bit more expensive in other stores. But this also brings a bit of conflict, so to speak, because you find watches like this that offer a lot of value with automatic GMT movements and cardlex bezel, but at the same price you also find watches with lower features, just as the Seiko 5. So Seiko is cannibalizing prices with watches that don't make sense. But why do I say they are watches that don't make sense? Well, because I believe Seiko made a very serious communication mistake with their customers. Now, I already talked about this in another video, but basically what Seiko did was discontinue the Seiko SKX and shortly after launching the Seiko 5 with the same case as the SKX, but it was more expensive and had lower features. So what was people's reaction? Well, of course, it didn't make sense to them that they discontinued the diving watch with many features and replaced it with a much more expensive watch with lower quality. But according to what I was told by someone who worked at Seiko, the Seiko 5 was never meant to replace the SKX. Rather, it was the Prospects line, which is the diving line that starts at $300 that was meant to replace the SKX Legend. So, when you discontinue a Legend and offer basically the same watch with the same case with lower features, well, you can understand where people's anger comes from. So these communication errors significantly affected the brand, and I believe that this anger and frustration from customers and fans of the Japanese house become even worse when we talk about materials. Because we come back to the same thing, Seiko's identity is still not clear to me. Do you want to be a higher quality and more expensive watch, or do you want to be affordable? And for me, as perhaps for many of you, it is unacceptable that watches that go for $500 or $600 still come with hardlex glass and aluminum bezel, simply because these materials are not as resistant as sapphire crystal or ceramic bezels. I mean, at least the GMT has hardlex crystal bezel. But in my opinion, if they had replaced the mineral crystal of that watch with a sapphire one, it would have been a home run. So I find it quite curious that brands that offer watches at half the price of Seiko can offer better features. But okay, I know that Seiko offers sapphire crystals and ceramic bezels in your $1,500 watches. But in the affordable ones that are also expensive for what they offer, you don't give me the best possible materials? So for me, it would be better to discontinue those lines and stick to the mid-range, because undoubtedly those details frustrate customers and brand lovers. So I truly believe we have a lack of identity crossing paths with Seiko, because on one hand they want to continue being the brand known for quality-price ratio to a certain extent, or a brand you can trust when you enter the watch world. But on the other hand, there are signs that they want to raise prices and give us watches with higher features. But I don't think it can be both. You have to decide which one you will be, and once you decide that, define your identity. I think all of us in this beautiful world of watches know that Seiko make quality watches. We know the history of the brand, and above all, I believe many of us started collecting watches with a Seiko. Their history is indisputable, and they have spectacular pieces with incredible technology and incomparable quality. But you can't split your capital and efforts into two battles that you won't win. Now, I believe Seiko is on the right path, focusing on mid-range pieces that offer a lot of quality for what you pay, because I think they have already shown that they do that perfectly well. And me, as a company, I would let Orient focus on being the entry-level brand. But that's a topic for another video.